You didn't think that Cesaro was really going to be pushed into the main spot on SmackDown? Not with Seth Rollins around. I'm gonna put on another ugly jacket. I'm gonna come out there and I'm gonna cost you guys all of your hopes and dreams for Cesaro in one fell swoop. And I did it tonight on Smackdown, and you're gonna talk about it live, right here and right now, with my best friend that I blocked on Twitter, Nick Nightmare, coming up on the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. I'm Seth Rollins. Yeah.
Sledgehammer Wrestling Show.
You know, for the majority of WrestleMania, the best matches for the both nights on WrestleMania weekend definitely took place thanks to the Smackdown brand, and that made me eagerly anticipate this week's episode of Friday Night Smackdown, as we were going to now have the Smackdown after WrestleMania. Surely we were going to get a couple of more surprises, surely we were going to take things in some different directions, and surely we were going to fail at every single thing that we did tonight if we are part of the WWE. Thank you guys all so much for joining me. My name is Nick Nightmare. You are watching the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, Smackdown review and reaction show. Make sure you hit that like button to say thank you to Seth Rollins for giving me that open at the beginning of this show. Guy hates my guts. But I just don't understand. There was so many things wrong with tonight's episode of SmackDown, starting off with the fact that we had a new announce team. Now, Pat McAfee on commentary opposite Michael Cole was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. He's a little bit irritating to me. He's probably supposed to come off that way. He's playing the heel commentator to Michael Cole's dumbass play-by-play. And, you know, it has potential. It'll probably get better. I just feel like he comes off as one of those guys that are too cool for school. You know, everybody's got one of them friends that tries to be super cool, saying things that make them look kind of silly and foolish in the end. But, you know, not too much bad about Pat McAfee. I think it's a crime that they put Pat McAfee on commentary while at the same time letting go Samoa Joe, as we are coming off the heels of another Black Wednesday in the world of wrestling. The WWE releasing 9 talents over the past 24 hours. And then we come into this episode of SmackDown where they weren't all really great talent, but some of them could definitely be used so that we don't feel like we're getting the same scenarios and the same shows and the same matches over and over and over again. 3 WrestleMania rematches on this night, because really it wasn't about anything more than the false hope for fans to get excited about Cesaro. It was Cesaro night SmackDown tonight, and they had a mission, and their mission was to shove down your throat the fact that Cesaro did the UFO. The UFO. This is a move that he has done before. It's not anything magic. It's not anything that should have been called the most impressive WrestleMania moment of all time by Michael Cole. What an idiot. Do you know how many WrestleMania moments there are? You're telling me, you know, I love Cesaro. I'm a huge fan of Cesaro, and I thought the UFO was a great spot to pull out for WrestleMania, but you're telling me that's better than anything that we've seen between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels? That's a bigger WrestleMania moment than Savage and Steamboat? I don't think so. Let's calm down with the hyperbole. And the one thing that makes you know that the WWE is completely inept at storytelling is the fact that all night long they showed us the UFO 357 times. Every time we came back from commercial, every time we were going to talk to Cesaro, every time we mentioned Roman Reigns, and then to top off the fact that we've seen it 100 million times, as we went into the main event segment of tonight, which featured Cesaro, they said the UFO. They kept mentioning the UFO. They kept talking about that UFO maneuver. And if they said UFO any more times, I was going to send myself into outer space because I just couldn't take it anymore. And then they don't even pay it off. They don't even pay it off. They hype up this move all night long and they don't even make it be part of the match. They don't give Cesaro the spot to make us all appreciate this UFO. They were building and building and building up towards a move that was never going to come. And we could thank Seth Rollins for ruining what looked to be a different path for Cesaro. Instead of pushing forward, as it looked like they were intending to do when this show opened, Roman Reigns came out. He called out the entire locker room. He said, nobody's got the balls to challenge me. That's all you need to know. Everything else he said was just talking about WrestleMania. He had Paul Heyman talk about how he stacked and defeated Edge and Daniel Bryan. And then they went on to say nobody's going to have the guts to challenge him, not after what he did to two Hall of Famers. And Cesaro's music hits. Cesaro makes it all the way to the ring. And then Roman Reigns disrespects him by not even acknowledging his existence, just walking off, kind of chuckling and laughing under his breath, shaking his head like, who the hell does this guy think he is? So Roman Reigns moves to the back, completely disrespects Cesaro. I figured, all right, we're off to the races. We're going to have a really good time here tonight on Friday Night Smackdown. And then from there, it went completely downhill with poop hammer segment after poop hammer segment over and over and over again. Instead of doubling down and pushing hard on a singular focused push for Cesaro versus Roman Reigns, which is something I think the entire universe would be inclined to see, they had to take 2 steps backwards and bring Seth Rollins back into the mix when their story concluded at WrestleMania. See, Seth Rollins was all pissed off that he got spun 157 times over the course of the last month on SmackDown, culminating in this match where Cesaro gets his first win at WrestleMania, singles win at WrestleMania, and then instead of making the obvious decision, they just go backwards, giving us the same tired shit that we have seen leading into WrestleMania. That is the story with almost every single thing that happened tonight. We had so many things at WrestleMania come to a logical conclusion. Damn, even the women's tag team division had a logical conclusion over the course of WrestleMania weekend. Sure, they don't have women's tag teams, and some of the decisions they made booking-wise were suspect at best, and the match quality wasn't that great, but the story they were telling, Natalya and Tamina winning that 5-woman tag team matchup on night 1, challenging the champions on night 2, all the while building up to WrestleMania, having Natty and Tamina being featured in prominent roles, winning matches over some of the other girls, building them up, telling their story. They lost at WrestleMania. Time to move on, but I understand there's no tag teams because they released 4 girls today that they definitely shouldn't have released. Not that I'm the hugest proponent of the Iconics. I think they're terrible. Their in-ring skill is not that great, and I don't find them as amusing as most of the rest of the WWE universe, but when you need bodies and you need teams, it was stupid to break them up in the first place, and it only ended up with them both being on the unemployment line today, while we desperately need new faces and new tag teams to stop this round robin of, 8 women? 8 women? We didn't even see the Riot Squad tonight. We didn't see Carmella tonight. We didn't see anybody else tonight. What are they doing? The SmackDown Tag Team Division. Last week on WrestleMania Smackdown, we had the Fatal 4-Way Tag Match. And then today we just go right back. This week, 7 days later, we go right back into the same pattern because we've seen Rey Mysterio versus Otis. And of course, instead of trying to get Dominic over and putting him in the ring, having him having matches and bringing us a new Mysterio, we have to focus on 50-year-old Rey Mysterio and have him beat a guy like Otis who needs a big win more than he needs a big fat steak. Okay, I don't understand the mentality of this show. We got a rematch between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for absolutely no reason. Sami Zayn's character is not really going anywhere, so he just continues to say the same things week after week. He's got this conspiracy theory going on in his head, and it's starting to get a little bit annoying. But you had no plans for any of these people past WrestleMania? That you just decided to hit the repeat button on almost everything that we've seen tonight? absolutely ridiculous. This was a very upsetting episode of SmackDown, especially if you want to consider the fact that it's the SmackDown after Mania and the entire show gets a big fat poop hammer, bow, bow, because it friggin' deserves it. And if you can't think of a reason why, maybe you enjoyed today's show, maybe you enjoyed some of the action, because the in-ring action wasn't so bad for most of the night. Maybe you enjoyed certain parts of the show, like I enjoyed the Bianca Belair championship celebration. I liked that she had her real-life husband out there with her. I didn't mind the Street Profits being a part of this. I thought it made it feel a little bit more special, but that was the only thing on this night that I actually enjoyed. And you can't tell me that just because we had that segment, we can't give this show a poop hammer, because this show didn't have not 1 minute for Edge or for Daniel Bryan or for Big E. But we got to see Apollo Crews, the new champion, which was great, but his only purpose on the show was to introduce us to Babatunde Yabba Dabba Doo Dabba Kato, who's no longer any of those names, and he's now General Aziz, or Commander Aziz, and we're supposed to forget everything we know about this man. We're supposed to pretend we've never seen him before. They're going to call him the Nigerian Nail, and he was a commander from a Nigerian army. He wasn't in the Raw Underground a few months ago. That's a different guy. This is Commander Aziz, and he is a Nigerian guard of the Prince's Royal Order, or whatever the hell he said, and he's carrying around this big, silly-looking stick, and it's just actually, I think, bringing down the whole thing. It was bad enough when Apollo Crews pulled out this accent, but this, you're smacking me in the face as a wrestling fan. You're insulting my intelligence, and you're changing a character without showing any kind of change, any kind of transition. Not that Yabba Dabba Doo was any kind of a big deal. He was fed to Braun Strowman in the Raw Underground. They really did nothing with him, and maybe they just want you to forget all about it. Maybe they think we're all that stupid and we're not going to realize it's the same guy. And then of all the nicknames, you're going to give him the Nigerian Nail. That's very underwhelming. Any of you guys around my age, you know the original Nails from the WWF days. Remember Nails, the big psycho that broke out of prison just to come and beat up the big boss man? How'd that turn out? So maybe having the Nails is in your name is not a good sign for your future. Vince McMahon must really have been trying to come up with a way to reinvent nails. So we got the Nigerian Nail. So stupid. I got a Nigerian Nail for you right here. Okay? Don't insult my intelligence. I hate that shit. I hate it. So instead of Dabba Kato just being hired by Apollo Crews to help him out, he's got this new Nigerian backstory, even though he's nowhere near from Nigeria, and it's insulting. But you didn't have 2 minutes to have Big E on the show tonight? Have him talk about how he's not going to let Apollo get away with this? Maybe he's going to mount some sort of a comeback? I hope. But no time for Big E, no time for Daniel Bryan or Edge, nobody to come out and dispute the final thing. There was no controversial aspect being laid upon the WrestleMania main event. Roman Reigns pinned 2 people. You would think that somehow they would, or at least Edge, the ultimate opportunist, could try to say, listen, I was on top of Daniel Bryan. Roman Reigns was holding me down on top of him. I should be the one getting the 3 count. Do something interesting. They didn't care to do anything at all. Edge is just home. Daniel Bryan just went home. Roman Reigns shows up, gets confronted by Cesaro, and they take the easiest, laziest way out of everything, because Cesaro wants a match with Roman tonight, following how the show opened and the disrespect that he was showed him. And in true WWE fashion, what do? Before you get to Roman, you got to go through Jey. Main event Jey Uso. The very same main event Jey Uso that won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal last week, and that's the only match he's won in the last 6 months. Does it matter if you're in the main event if all you do in the main event is lose? I don't know. But the main event, Jey Uso gets another main event so that he can go out there and try to stop Cesaro from getting a chance at the Universal Championship. We also had Paul Heyman. Of course, he's going to be on the side of the Tribal Chief. He's going to talk down to Cesaro and he's going to build up his guy. That's his job. I understand as a heel manager. I just really think that the WWE and the writing staff are so inept at tapping into some real things. So that when Paul Heyman gets handed a script or given a bunch of bullet notes of where he's got to go, instead of talking about how much he has respect for Cesaro, being that he used to be an advocate for Cesaro. Didn't he manage Cesaro at one point, calling him the next big thing in the WWE? He knows what Cesaro is all about. He knows what Cesaro brings to the table. And instead of coming at it from a respectful angle, almost like he did with Edge, talking about how he cares for Cesaro, he really likes Cesaro, and he's making the wrong decision by doing this because Roman Reigns is going to eviscerate him and there's nothing Paul Heyman can do to protect him. That would be a great story to tell here, but instead, Paul Heyman decides to call Cesaro a slack-jawed Neanderthal. He threw something else in there. What the hell was the other thing he called him? It was just back to that 5th grade insult level type of thing. Oh, buck-toothed. See what I mean? He's a buck-toothed, slack-jawed Neanderthal, says Paul Heyman about a guy who he used to talk rings about and thought was one of the greatest things on the WWE roster. It just rubs me the wrong way. There's such an easier way to go about it, saying things like he's got $1 million body and a 10-cent brain. What is he, Braun Strowman? Paul Heyman's playing the role of the Sultan of Sweat, Shane McMahon? I don't need this. Why can't we just have serious competition? Why can't Paul Heyman acknowledge the history that he has with Cesaro? It's silly. It's silly. Just like a majority of this show was silly. Before we get into the ups and downs of the show, let's just talk about what they did with Bianca Belair and the Street Profits. I enjoyed the segment. I thought it was great. I thought her promo was heartfelt and compassionate. I loved the way that her husband, Montez Ford, hyped her up on the way out. Excuse me. But I didn't love the fact that they almost made you believe that the Street Profits were going to win the titles tonight. First of all, I don't understand why they even have a title shot. Maybe they have a title shot just off of the power of Bianca Belair winning the Women's Championship. I don't know what the reasoning is. All I know is it felt like that would have been the right call. I was almost watching the Tag Team Championship match tonight, just waiting for the Street Profits to win so Bianca can come back out. We can have a celebration. Maybe the three of them kind of form a thing. You know, some sort of a 3-person stable of some sort, since they're all real fam. But no, instead they make the Street Profits lose, killing off all their momentum. The Street Profits have lost now in like the last 4 attempts against the Dirty Dogs. Dolph Ziggler really being a dirty dog tonight, putting in a long-ass blonde braid on the back of his head to mock the man's wife, and you don't even give them the win? I don't understand it. This would have been the perfect storm, so to speak. The Tag Team Championships were dead around the waist of the Dirty Dogs. Nobody gives a shit, and this would have been a way maybe to reinvigorate the title scene for the Tag Team division. Shoot some life into it. Not that I'm the biggest fan of the Street Profits. I think their gimmick's kind of growing old and they need to make some sort of a change, and this could have been that change. But instead, no. Bianca Belair even ended her promo saying, "We have gold in this house. We only have gold in this family. We're all about the gold now, so you better go out there and get your gold." It was almost like they were telling us what was going to happen. And then they didn't pull the trigger on it. For what? For Dolph and Bobby Roode to continue to do nothing? Awful. Absolutely awful. So we talked about the open of the show and the promo, Roman and Cesaro and their little sort of confrontation. They then showed some highlights from WrestleMania weekend. Michael Cole says we are going to take a look at the single most impressive WrestleMania moment ever, which is when they started to incessantly show us the Cesaro UFO spot from his match with Seth Rollins during WrestleMania weekend. Cesaro went to the back. He approached Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, who kind of are kind of acting like there's some sort of an internal combustible element between the two of them. I'm not sure if that's really going to be the direction where they're going, but maybe Sonya's about to pull some sort of a hostile takeover and start to outrank Adam Pearce. I don't know. There's just some sort of a weird tension there. And Cesaro, of course, demands his match with Roman Reigns. And before Adam Pearce is able to make that match, Sonya's like, no, I'll go talk to Roman about it. And then we don't see anything about that. We don't see Sonya go to the locker room. We don't see her talk to Paul Heyman. We see Paul Heyman talking to Kayla Braxton so that he could talk shit about Cesaro and accept the match on Roman's behalf. But we don't see any of the interaction between Sonya and Roman. Is this like a collusion thing? Is she favoring him? Is she trying to be the heel side of management while Adam Pearce is going to be the more level-headed GM, but not the GM who's actually the GM? I don't know. And you know why I don't know? Because they don't even know what they're doing. It just doesn't really make sense. They recapped the UFO at WrestleMania for the first of 6 times on this night. Then we got Rey Mysterio defeating Otis because, I don't know, because reasons. I don't know. They got rid of Tucker in the mass firings that we mentioned earlier. One of those 9 names was Tucker, Otis's former tag team partner. And once again, much like the Iconics, you broke up that tag team to do absolutely nothing with them. Tucker apparently turned heel, but never got his chance to tell his side of the story, never got his one-on-one match with Otis. Otis never got any sort of a comeuppance or retribution for what his partner / brother / meat-eating best friend did to him. It was just all dropped. And now Tucker's gone. Otis is teaming with Chad Gable, having singles matches, losing to Rey Mysterio, a guy half his size. When it's almost about time Otis starts to be built up, or else he's almost going to be next. This time next year on Black Wednesday, we're going to see Otis's name on the list if they don't start giving this guy some solid wins. And he comes out still with his blue-collar stuff and the pictures of the stakes on the Titantron. It's like, is he a heel or is he not a heel? You're just doing the same old shit with him, and I don't get it. I don't understand. And of course, it's in the WWE, it's absolutely necessary to have the guys in their 50s beat the guys in their 20s and 30s because that's just the mandate of the company. God forbid Rey Mysterio puts somebody over. They once again recap Cesaro defeating Seth Rollins. Then we had Sami Zayn coming out talking about his moment at WrestleMania where he was screwed over by Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, and the rest of the world who have it all out for Sami. He demands vindication. He demands Kevin Owens come out, and Kevin Owens was taking his time, and so Sami decided to run him down. It's like, you know you're not going to come out because Logan Paul's not here to distract me. The fans aren't here to distract me, and you know you're going to lose. So Kevin Owens goes out there. And this was your typical Sami versus Kevin match. It was a great match. These guys can probably wrestle each other in their sleep, and it would be as entertaining as anything you could watch in pro wrestling. But if the fact that this was just a repeat of what we got to see at WrestleMania, and where do they go from here now? Kevin Owens has beaten Sami Zayn twice in 1 week. At some point, is Sami going to wake up, or is Kevin going to turn around and start to see things from Sami's point of view? I don't understand it. Kevin Owens wins via countout, only for them to brawl a little bit more after the match, and Sami Zayn get his ass kicked and gets a stunner at the end of the match, which if you were going to do that anyway, and he was going to lose no matter what, why not just have him lose to the stunner and be done with this and move on to something else? Because if you're just going to keep giving me Kevin versus Sami over and over with no progression in the story and everything saying the same, I'm not going to be interested, no matter how great their match might be. Then we had Apollo Crews with Commander Aziz, bragged about winning the title, talked about Big E not being there, which I still don't understand why. It's been 6 days since WrestleMania, 5 days since WrestleMania. He took a bullshit move from Aziz and he's out for a week. I don't understand any of that. There was no mention of the Raw Underground, as I said, and Commander Aziz is a former member of the Nigerian Guard of Apollo Crews' sudden new royal family, I suppose. and it's silly. The Bianca Belair Championship celebration then came next. It was a great introduction by Montez. She, upon coming out, she was very respectful to Sasha Banks. She said that Sasha Banks pushed her to the limit. They both made history. But then she also made mention that she left her a little gift to remember her by, talking shit about that scar that we all saw on Sasha's side after WrestleMania Saturday, which looked painful as hell from that hair whip that she took right before she lost the title. Belair pointed out she just started making history. And then they all had some kind of a hug. She told the boys to go win the tag team titles. She delivered very well on her promo. This was a very positive, uplifting moment. And then they shit all over it. Kayla Braxton interviewed Sasha Banks in the back, who was absolutely furious. Even though Bianca was very respectful and gave her props, she had absolutely nothing to say except Bianca's name and then just kind of walked off. I don't know if this was meant to happen, and it was kind of awkward because they went to commercial again, and then they came back, and now Kayla Braxton was talking with Bayley, who kind of picked up where Sasha left off. She was mocking Belair, promised to restore dignity to the Women's Championship. I don't know where that's coming from. And then challenged Belair to a match and promised to take the title from her. Bayley versus Bianca will be a good feud, but somehow Sasha's probably going to get involved. And I guess that would be good if we got something between the three of them on the road to SummerSlam, maybe ending in a triple threat between the three. I would be accepting of that, because who the hell else is there? In a singles capacity, there is nobody that is worthy of stepping up to Bianca Belair aside from Sasha Banks or Bayley. But I guess that's what you get for not having a WrestleMania match or a WrestleMania moment worth a damn. She showed up for 2 nights, picked on Michael Cole, got her ass beat by the Bellas, and now she's challenging Bianca for the title. Does that make sense? No, but this is WWE where nothing makes sense. SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Dirty Dizzogs, beat the Street Profits to retain the championship. It was a great tag team match, and let me tell you something, this was maybe the best I've seen of the Street Profits on the main roster. It's like they were really wrestling with a renewed vigor, which is what really made me feel like they were going to come out and win this matchup, and they were so close on so many occasions, but Dolph Ziggler would hit Montez forward with the zigzag to retain the championships, which I think was the wrong move here. If ever there was a time the Street Profits should have won the championships, it was tonight. And it should have been in the main event, not Jey Uso versus Cesaro. And it should have ended the show on a positive note. Bianca, her boo, and their best friend all holding the gold. I mean, considering the fact that you didn't have any new surprises for SmackDown, you didn't have any returning superstars, you didn't have anything good going on, you could have at least gave us that. But instead, they wanted to show us Cesaro giving Rollins the UFO. Again, immediately after this segment. And then again, 5 or 6 more times before the show would go off the air. Kayla Braxton would interview Cesaro, who was pointing out all of the things that Paul Heyman had said earlier. He said that Paul Heyman was right about all of that stuff. He says, I do have buck teeth. I do have a slack jaw. But I belong in the ring with Roman Reigns. And he's going to prove it. Then they cut to a shot where Roman Reigns is in the back and he's all pissed off. He's got like a perplexed look on his face, and he couldn't believe that Cesaro could even imagine that he belongs in the same ring as him. Then Jey Uso had a very fiery promo talking about how he disrespected Roman Reigns, he disrespected the head of the table, and now you're calling out the right-hand man, and now he's got to take care of him, Uso. And tonight that's the plan, and it was going to happen in the main event. Natty versus Shayna Baszler. For absolutely no reason. Not like we haven't seen this in the last 6 weeks, almost every week. Natalya defeated Shayna Baszler tonight in the same old song and dance, WWE's greatest hits. Nia Jax hit the apron, causing a distraction, but it backfired, and Natty wins with a roll-up. Former NXT champion Shayna Baszler long-running women's tag team champion Shayna Baszler, the same Shayna Baszler that should be in the singles division, challenging Bianca Belair, challenging Sasha Banks, challenging Bayley, who's been stuck in this Nia Jax hellhole of a tag team division, is losing to Natalya, I guess to set up another match for Natty and Tamina. Like we haven't seen that enough already. And I'll tell you another thing. Right now, Tamina seems to be getting over. She was over with the actual crowd at WrestleMania. And they decided to, feed those cheers in, with the faked canned audio, which they really put out on display tonight for most of the show, which was very annoying. And the fact that people are caring more about her than Natalya is kind of weird to me. I don't know. Not that I care for either of them all that much. I'm tired of both of these characters. They've been around for over a decade. There's no reason for this tag team. There's no name, no rhyme, no reason. It just kind of happened, and now they're going to continue to go with it because there are no other tag teams. Oh, wait, there is. There's the Riot Squad. But even if they did that, it would be the same shit anyway because there are no tag teams. So this division continues to be where the women and men collectively go to languish and die and fight over belts that have no meaning whatsoever. They talked about Jey Uso winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and then finally they decided to remind everybody, oh, by the way, Cesaro also won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. The first ever Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, to be exact. So we had the guy that won the first Battle Royal versus the guy that most recently won the Battle Royal in the main event of SmackDown to see if Cesaro is worthy of Roman Reigns. And this brings me back to my point earlier. Defeating Jey Uso is like a thing everybody does, even though it's in the main event. So if he's an ineffective right-hand man and he hasn't stopped one person from getting to Roman Reigns, how is this going to prove Cesaro's worthy? At this point, Paul Heyman could probably beat Jey Uso in the main event of a SmackDown. They don't ever book him to win, but he goes out there and he puts on a great match. This was another really good, really hard-hitting, fast action match. Cesaro defeated Jey Uso, as you all could imagine was going to happen, but it was by disqualification because despite how good the match was, and despite how interested we all were with Cesaro possibly getting on the track to the Universal Championship, Seth Rollins came out in another stupid jacket screaming he's the end-all, be-all of this company multiple times, and that he's not done with Cesaro. And I was done with them as soon as that match was over at WrestleMania. Seth Rollins should be moving to something else, and Cesaro should be left alone to have this run uninterrupted, no speed bumps, make it interesting. You got 4 weeks till WrestleMania Backlash. You could have done something to make Cesaro feel important, but instead, you're just pulling him backwards, sending him to do things we've already seen him do. And as I mentioned, despite the fact that they built and built and built how amazing this UFO spot was, we did not see it during Cesaro's match with Jey Uso, which in and of itself is an epic failure by the WWE. And it really, really upsets me because week after week we sit here and we tell you that SmackDown is usually the more consistent and more entertaining show. But on this night, it's just as bad as Raw. Just as bad. Despite the decent in-ring action, and despite the tease of Roman and Cesaro, we ain't going to get that yet. Because he's got to embrace the vision of Seth Rollins first. Let's just, before we sign off, talk about the full list of releases, which I have in my notes here. Samoa Joe being released is a goddamn travesty. This guy was grossly underutilized. I still maintain he should have beat Brock Lesnar when he fought Brock Lesnar all those years ago, taking the WWE Championship in the process and going on to bigger, better things with it. That never happened. We did get a Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles feud, which was kind of lackluster because regardless how good or bad their matches were, the underlying story of Samoa Joe and Wendy was just kind of cringeworthy and didn't really make all that much sense. We had the Iconics let go. Not really any sweat off my back. I didn't enjoy the act whatsoever, but the WWE definitely is in need of an act like the Iconics. They screwed it up when they broke them up, and now they're gone. Mickie James, WWE Hall of Famer, released from her current contract without ever really being used properly. She had a couple of decent matches versus Asuka, one in NXT and one for the Women's Championship on Raw, and that's it. Instead of having her build up some of the younger girls, have singles feuds with somebody like a Shayna Baszler, maybe bring up somebody like a Mandy Rose, maybe help somebody like a Dana Brooke get better, we just have Mickie James standing around in oblivion, doing nothing, commentating at NXT TakeOver for some unknown reason. And it's not that she did a bad job, but here we are today. Mickie James, who is definitely somebody that could have been used, is gone. Chelsea Green. She's another one. I'm not like a hugely big mark of Chelsea Green. She's done some interesting things in Impact. She was okay in NXT. She had a minor run. She was up on SmackDown and she got hurt. She has a history of getting hurt, so I guess the WWE decided she's not deserving of a chance. Or maybe they just realized, oh, well, we fired her husband. We might as well just fire her too, as she is the real life fiance/wife, girlfriend of Zack Ryder. All of these people that have been released also are under 90-day compete clauses, so we won't be seeing anybody popping up anywhere till about July, so everybody's got to hold their horses to see who goes where. Bo Dallas, another huge fail. For years, I have been saying that Bo Dallas should have been brought into the Wyatt family when that was a thing. Not Braun Strowman, not Randy Orton, not Daniel Bryan. Bo Dallas. He should have been brought in as Bray's little brother, and he should have been the one to break out and break away from the mind control because he believed in himself, and you could have had Bray Wyatt versus Bo Dallas, and you could have made it interesting. Now, even more recently, we've been hearing rumors that the Fiend angle, we all know how dead it is and it needed to be shaken up, and some people were suggesting that Bo Dallas could be involved in this new Fiend family of the Bray Wyatt universe. Now that he had Alexa Bliss, we thought, why not bring in Bo Dallas as well? Maybe there will be two Fiends. And you could have done the same thing. You could have had Bray continue to be the Fiend. You could have had Bo Dallas in this world with him, but somehow trying to save himself, maybe save his brother, and you could have had the Friend versus the Fiend. You could have done a million different things with Bo Dallas, but instead they stuck him in the Miztourage, and they stuck him in the Social Outcasts, and most recently in the B-Team. All failed gimmicks. All gimmicks that didn't have a chance from the minute they began. But the very clear, obvious place to put them, you never put him, and now you fired the brother of one of the top acts in the company, and it doesn't make sense to me. The next few, Wesley Blake, Mojo Rawley, Kalisto, Tucker. I could say the same thing about all four men. All four of these men could have been greatly used in the tag team division. We had Wesley Blake with Steve Cutler. They were with Jackson Riker in the Forgotten Sons. Jackson Riker fucked everything up for everybody, but he's the one that's still on TV, and these two guys are jobless. Even though they moved them over to Baron Corbin, they were going to be the Knights of Baron Corbin's round Constable Dickhead table, but they just get fired instead. But the guy that was the jerk off, the guy that made the controversial statements, the guy that started all this trouble, he's on Monday Night Raw with Elias. What? When we need tag teams, you get rid of tag teams. Mojo Rawley. Never was a big fan of Mojo. He was always too hype for me. All of his shit that he did with Rob Gronkowski, Gronk at last year's WrestleMania, all garbage. They tried to change his character every couple of months. He's showing up with blue lines all over his face. Then he's Stuart Smalley giving himself public uh, affirmations, daily affirmations for himself to be better, like an addict would. And none of these things ever went anywhere. You know what went somewhere for Mojo Raleigh? The Hype Bros. A tag team that we needed. And you failed. You got rid of Zack Ryder last year, now you got rid of Mojo Raleigh. If anybody could have been used in the tag team division, he's definitely one of them. Kalisto was part of the Loser House Party for the longest time, but this guy was also part of the Lucha Dragons, which was a great tag team. You moved it into this jokey Lucha House Party nonsense. And the guy with the longest tenure, the guy that had the most upside, the guy that people mostly connected to in that group, is the one you get rid of. But we still got Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik, who should be a tag team, at least to be in the tag team division too, right? We need teams. We keep seeing the same matches over and over. You have a whole bunch of names that I just said that could have very easily been in a team. Teams. That's what we need. Teams. But no, we're just going to continue to cut all these people despite the fact that the WWE is making record cash. In the face of a global pandemic, they are still pulling record profits. Stocks are going up, but they're a business and they have to cut the fat. When you got profits like that, you don't have to cut shit. You know what? Take some money out of the graphics department. Demote some of the salaries for the merchandise department. Stop paying the people that make the shit music that you've been putting on for all these superstars. Pay the talent. We already talked about Tucker, the last one on the list. His partner's stuck in another tag team, which makes no sense, and is losing to Rey Mysterio. And Tucker is now unemployed. And I seen on Twitter earlier today that when he's been approached already with the question as to why Heavy Machinery was broken up, and his direct quote was, "I don't fucking know." Or who fucking knows, or whatever it was, but he dropped the F-bomb on it because it's as confusing to him as it is to all of us. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was tonight's Smackdown, plus a little bonus wrestling news with the releases. There supposedly are going to be more to come. So don't be surprised if we start seeing more and more people getting the axe as the week go on. This is something that happened last year as well. We got a big bunch of them on Wednesday, and then throughout the week they kept announcing, oh, and this one, and this one, and this one. I think last year it was somewhere near 20 superstars lost their jobs. This year we're up to 9. 9 people that could definitely have been used on this show to make it feel somewhat different. I seen people talking about Finn Balor coming back. None of that happened. This was a show about the UFO. That was the most important thing they could get over. And then we didn't see it. Thank you guys all so very much. That's going to do it for tonight. This is the team. Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world. The new and improved Blue, the Yeti Snowball microphone. He's been awesome. He's making me sound awesome. And the most important member of this team is not any one of us. It's each and every one of you. If you had a great time here today, don't forget to smash that thumbs up. Let me know how you liked it, because it definitely helps this channel out more than you guys know. Share this video with each and every one of your wrestling buddies all over the wrestling world, especially if they need a place to come and talk about wrestling and dump all over the product as only we can do. And of course, if you are not already a subscriber, help us get to that 3,000 subscriber mark right now by hitting that subscribe button, turning on all your notifications so that you don't miss it whenever we bring the hammer down on a WWE piece of crap show like tonight's Smackdown. If you missed anything along the road to WrestleMania, the WrestleMania review itself, I only did night 1 because it was the only thing really worth talking about. Night 2, I just kind of didn't have the energy anymore, and we talked briefly about most of it on the Raw review. If you missed that, that'll be linked up above my head as well. So don't forget to watch all of that and be here with us once again Monday night when the hammer comes down on Raw. that's going to do it. We are out of here. We will see you next time right here on your new favorite wrestling show, the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show, only on Sledgehammer TV, right here on YouTube.com.
Burn it. You should burn the jacket.